Hey guys, it's Imran from Options Insight back with your crypto options weekly. So, no financial advice from me. Everything we do is for educational purposes only. All right, with that, let's have a little look at the charts. Quite a good week for crypto. In fact, I'm going to share my actual chart rather than the screenshot. So here's the actual chart. Um, we had a nice break of 15K and then 18K, as we had said, was kind of the level to really getting above this hurdle here to kind of prove that the next wave higher was on. It kind of did it in style, took out the actual old high up here at 124.5, tagged 126 at the weekend, or was sorry, it was on Monday. And then today we have had a sizable pullback, touching lows near 120k. But if we draw like a fib grid off this low from 108 up to that local high, we could still easily kind of get into this 117 to 119 area, hold that and continue higher. And this could still be the start of a nice big impulsive wave higher. So no reason to believe this pullback's anything too sinister just yet. And if this is a first leg of an up move, then it's quite a sizable first leg. It's quite impulsive, which could open the door for levels in that kind of 140, 145 area in the next couple of months quite easily, right? So that's kind of the scenario that's opened up for us now, given the move we've seen. Looking at ETH, similar story, although we didn't really manage to take out that high up here near just shy of 5,000. I was looking for the next wave higher to take us through the high, but again, we're consolidating. As long as we kind of hang in there, if we have a look at the kind of levels, which we're still not in that first fib level at 44. So 43 to 44, we should hold if we can then go again and then potentially some sort of third wave move takes out the highs. That's definitely a scenario that makes sense. Looking at the spread, since it was in that massive downtrend for a long time. We drew that downtrend on, we broke through it. We've kind of been trying to test it on the way back down, and we're holding it. So still indecisive, I would say, around this key downtrend level. But gun to my head, I still do favor us to continue to go at some point, right? So when ETH does take out 5,000, expect this cross rate to be rallying quite hard with it. Okay. Other names like Solana, not really. I wouldn't say Solana's charts looking amazing. They have got potentially an ETF getting approved imminently, but the market's not really front running that by the looks of it. Some other names people care about, like Sui. Again, that chart doesn't look amazing, but it's clearly in some sort of consolidation. If and when it breaks out of that, then it's going to go, and I suspect it will go at some point. But for now, we're still waiting. Okay. So those are the charts. Let me jump back to the report. So still bullish. You guys know that I bought some futures on that 118k break and some calls. I flipped out the calls already. I do have some residual futures still with trailing stops in both ETH and Bitcoin. In fact, I thought those trailing stops were going to get hit today on the pullback, but they actually haven't yet. So let's see how we go. Vol-wise, realized Vol pretty stable. So despite the move we've seen, realized Vol actually didn't have that much of an uptick. Bitcoin still sitting around 30, ETH sitting around 55, 50, 55. Front end vols were up, but yeah, and they took the curves out of contango. So you can see here, they were in quite steep contango. They are much flatter now, the curves. But really, the uptick in vol, a lot of it has just come in that last dip that we've seen today. We weren't seeing that much of a move in vol. I put a tweet out about it as well, showing that as we've traded up from 115 to 125k, vol barely budged, cool skew barely budged. It's like, market is not chasing this like it normally does from a speculative sort of standpoint. So it suggests that the money that's been bought, the things, the inflows that have created this rally have been more on a spot basis rather than, futures getting bid and futures basis blowing out and any of that stuff, or calls getting lifted and call skew blowing out. It's not really been a derivatives led move. So if it's more of a real money inflows into spot ETFs type move, then it's probably more sustainable, right? So that's another reason why this pullback we're seeing probably holds, because I don't think it's some massive like, retail speculative bid that is going to suddenly unwind or anything and have a low pain threshold on the purchases that were just made. We had $6 billion of inflows across digital assets. That's a massive number last week, right? So looking strong, can't fight it. Not that we are fighting it, right? I mean, obviously, you guys know I've been on crypto for a while. Every now and again, I do hedge bits and bobs here and there, but with that break of 118, I took a bit of a tactical long in futures against the fact that it looked like the charts were ready to have a go, basically, right? We've been waiting for this move. Gold had been exploding. When was crypto going to have its catch up? And then we finally just got that break, and it kind of made sense to jump on it a little bit. Here's your time series. You can see curves were pretty steep going into the weekend, have flattened out a little bit, really just on this kind of last bit of rip higher and then give back that we've seen. Curve got quite steep there in Ethereum as well, as you can see, but yeah, that front end catching a bit again, curves flattening out. Skew wise, we were in kind of -6 for Bitcoin and ETH last week. That did tighten up, and then tightened up pretty quickly, to be fair, at the end of the month. And then 7 days later, where we are today, we've actually got put skew slightly higher than it was, despite the market being materially higher. So you can see there's clearly an institutional put bid coming through that is not chasing spot. If anything, as spot goes higher, it brings in more put demand to lock in and crystallize some of these gains that they've got on their longs in case there is a rollover, basically, right? So skew curves not really doing what you tend to expect when we're going to new highs in Bitcoin. Front end skew still at 2.5 for puts. It's popped a little bit there, so reduced the amount of put skew in like short dates. But then when we go to the back end, March, June, Sep, all of this stuff coming in and moving more towards puts, right? So that's interesting flow. And like I say, the only way I can really rationalize that is that there's institutions either selling calls or selling calls and buying puts that's creating this kind of skew even when we're rallying. And we did see flows in the market, much more coming from the call selling side. End of October, 124k calls getting sold in a chunk. And then call spreads getting bought in the long end. So again, people not willing to buy outright calls, so they do call spreads, and that means that call skew doesn't really catch a bid, basically. ETH did see some outright call buying in the front, but that didn't stop put skew catching a bid again in ETH as well. So really both assets saying that, yes, it's rallying, but we're not piling into calls for the rally, right? So it says, to me, instos have bought the rally for the long term, and they're happy to sell call options to earn premium and earn income against it. And that is why the skew curve is not responding at all the way we're used to seeing. And it means that we might well see a structural put bid in crypto that is gonna look more like equities. The more this market matures, the more people who own this market, the more they're going to need protection. And once they get their head around the idea of selling calls, buying puts for protection, there's just going to be a structural put bid in this space, it seems to me, right? Now, there will be some names that go parabolic, like we saw in Ethereum, like we may still see in the likes of Solana, and that will create a reason to own calls. But I think that will be fleeting, right? That people will come in, buy calls for a move, but once the story's played out and the move's done, then it will go back to more of a structural put bid to protect longs. Because the more treasury companies, if you think about it, the more treasury companies that build assets, the more of an obvious need there is to protect those assets, basically. Okay? Those treasuries are not going to start building treasuries and then dump it at the first sign of trouble. But they will have a responsibility to manage that treasury well and risk manage that treasury they're holding. And as we do start to see some drawdowns now and again, they'll be more motivated to maybe protect them and do those sort of trades. All right. But clearly this inability of front end skew to follow spot prices higher marks a major change in behavior compared to previous breakouts in crypto, right? And definitely suggests the nature of the investor base, particularly in Bitcoin, is changing, right? And is becoming much more institutional. All right, and then RV, the spot, I showed you the chart already, kind of at that inflection point and trying to make his mind up. The vol spread has compressed some more down to near 22 in the absolute front, still about 25 in that end of oct, and then kind of a parallel shift there down to nearly 18 in the long end. So I thought it would hold 20. It's trying to push a little bit lower. I don't think Bitcoin Vol's going to outperform ETH for very long. This move down in the spread was not ETH Vol getting sold. It was just Bitcoin Vol popping more than ETH because Bitcoin kind of seemed to lead the rally this time. So yeah, that's where we are in terms of the RV and then the skew here. You can see there's a little bit more of a put bid here for Ethereum front end, but then as we flip to the back end, there's a cool bid for Ethereum, which I think is going to be quite persistent. But that story's been in place for a while. People looking for the Ethereum re-rating to the upside later on next year now. All right, those are my thoughts. So yeah, it's been a good week for crypto. Today not so good, but still looks like a healthy correction after the kind of run that we had. And you know, all signs look like an institutional-led move, which probably shouldn't reverse itself super fast, right? That's the impression I get, at least from the options market. All right, that's it from me. Catch you guys next week.
Hi everyone, thanks for making it to the end of the video. Remember, this is just a little taster of what we do at Options Insight. To get access to all our research, including my in-depth vol market insights, flows and positioning report, and my portfolio trades, and a whole lot more, you can sign up at options-insight.com. I'll see you soon.